working. Just a little more in-depth vlog on how my speakers work and what I'm going to do with my speakers next. Like with these ones, I'm going to make some speakers look like this, and I have wood there. So we're going to start with a demo, and I'm going to walk around the room to hear the treble, and also go behind the speakers, see how they sound as well. So let's go, and then we'll go from there. Now I'm going to turn it down, and we'll start. I've got a list somewhere. No, that's not it. Have the list, what to do, and the demo. Oh yeah, now I've got a lot of speakers on YouTube, and I've come up with a fairly good concept. It never really hit it, you know. And I'll find the other one. Here it is. And that's a full range speaker, focus, and it's got a piece of tin foil just stuck straight to it. And I had to muck around the dust cap and stuff, and it worked. It gives it more kilohertz, a little bit more, but doesn't really hit you like a ton of bricks like this one does. That's just amazing, the difference. It's just some cheese and chalk, you know, the difference, because that's separate vibrations, two separate vibrations sort of thing. You got the cone in its sort of vibration, then you got this other thing just above it, 1/8 of an inch above it, vibrating all by itself, sort of thing, separately with the rest of the thing, even though it's the same signal. And I coined the phrase acoustic separation. Now, for some reason, because that's not attached to the cone, where like this one, it seems to go up higher, because it's got its own individual resonance frequency. It must be really high. and so you get more kilohertz that way, and the cymbals sound like real ones. And sometimes when they hit the cymbals in the centre of the cymbal and they hit it fairly hard in a live concert and a live band, you can hear it stings your eardrums out, you know. And these things do the same thing, like just as loud, to really loud, but only sometimes when they hit the cymbals loud and hard, it seems to have an incredible dynamic range up there, up the top. Because sometimes the cymbals are so loud, it's just ridiculous and really stinging and really high loud, like really tss, and really intense, and goes right through your ears, just like a real cymbal. And comes from both sides of the little leaf. That's what they call it, a leaf. And it comes from both sides, and it hits the speaker and comes out. It doesn't last very long from both sides, but it seems to make it sound more 3D still. We're coming from both sides, and that's the thing that's made my speakers completely different than they were, and I'm finally going to make some and sell them. Now I've gone through the history, and now I'll get a little bit about the philosophy. Point source, we have to talk about that and get that all cleared up. What's point source? These aren't obviously completely point source, but 99% or 90% are, and you go back to that later. Now, here we have a normal two-way speaker with a woofer and a tweeter, and you got the vowels from the voice sound coming from the woofer, and you got the consonants coming from the tweeter. So you got your texture from the coming from the tweeter and a tone from the woofer. Two separate completely things, and it doesn't. And the ear and your brain blends it because it gets used to the sounds. It's amazing how the ear or the brain can get used to sounds. And I was really terrible at making speakers 10 years ago. It's just not enough mid-range, because it was a really mid-rangey room. The room, no joke, was all sort of all hard surfaces all over, the whole 8 surfaces, whole 6 surfaces I mean. The floor was all tiled and everything like that, and so of course there's a lot of mid-range, a lot of upper mid-range, but I made the mistake of putting not enough mid-range in, then putting more in till it's enough. But now I do it the other way around, have too much in and then put a little bit less and less until it sounds okay, sort of thing, you know. A lot better, a better way to do it. Now with a full range speaker or a dual concentric, or what they call a coaxial speaker as well. We've got one here, this is a coaxial speaker. That's a coaxial speaker, and the woofer and tweeter are set right in, and that has the vowels and the consonants coming from the same place instead of from a foot apart. Now that's the theory behind it. When you hear it, you can really hear the difference still, because the stereo image is just so much better with the texture and tone coming from the same place. So that's why I have point source sound. But point source sound, especially full range speakers like these, even mine, suffer from the same problem, where the two-way ones, what I just showed you with the woofer and tweeter and a tweeter set inside, don't have the problem quite so much. But this problem is called the Doppler effect. In other words, to put really simply, the treble and mid-range is wobbling out of the speaker with the cone excursions. So when the cone's excurting, not only the bass is excurting, all the treble is too, and the mid-range. So the treble and mid-range is wobbling out, but with it, you know. And so, especially if some speakers, full range speakers, don't sort of make much sound compared with when they're in the middle. When the cone's in the middle, it makes more sound. When it's right on the extreme edges, the treble and mid-range are actually cut down, sort of thing, you know. And so you get a sound and the cymbals go not distortion, it's just because it's cutting down, so it's a bad full range speaker. And you got too much bass in it, sort of thing, you know, and you're driving it too hard or something. They don't all do it, but I have heard that happen. It's just terrible, you know. But the thing is, I solved the problem by not having the bass, the lower bass that causes the excursions, and I limit the excursions on the cone of this one. I've limited the excursions by adding a capacitor to it, a 68 microfarad. And it's got that pucky bass drum sound and a really dungy sound, really nice and sharp dungy sound in the bass, but it's just not deep at all, you know, like that doesn't move at all. I can turn this up, really turn it up loud, and it's only moving the 16th of an inch or something at the most, because you don't want it to move, you know, because there's a Doppler effect, and also you want the little speaker to be able to handle the power, sort of thing. That's another thing, you know. And so I've got a compromise, which I'll tell you about later. Now this is a two-way or a three-way speaker system. Now you don't get the problem. The cone's wobbling on the woofer, but not on the mid-range and the tweeter. The cones are completely still. And you get the still mid-range and still treble, which I love, you know. But unfortunately not point source. But with my speakers, I've got really, really still mid-range and treble, and let's have the wick wound right up, you know, and still, and it's sort of less than a half a millimetre, way less than that even, you know. It's amazingly good, and you still hear bass coming out of it without it moving. See, that's the secret, and you've got to know how to do it though. Now another thing about if you can't have point source, have linear phase. Linear phase is a tower of sound on each speaker, and you have the whooper on the bottom, and exactly 90 degrees above that you have your other drivers. So it's lined up like a vertical thing with the voice coils, not the front of the speaker, with the voice coil part, sort of thing, you know. And this one here is a passive radiator, so you may think it's recessed a bit, but it's not, because it's a little bit more forward, that one, because of the middle of it is a bit more forward, because it's a bit more deeper, but it's a passive radiator, and it's a box that I made, and I just put it in there, so it might be like half an inch out or something, but only the passive radiator. Anyway, and this is my experimental box. It's two boxes. I want to make it so it's one box. And it was the whole 3 drivers in it, or whatever, 2 drivers with the passive radiator. Now, we've gone through that now. So mine will have the treble and lower mid-range up to the highest treble on the top driver, the bass on the bottom one, sort of thing. So the crossover frequency about 300 hertz or something, 200 hertz or something like that. Pretty low, sort of thing. Now, this part here isn't really for this video, but we'll quickly go through it. You see the sound spectrum of a speaker is divided up into 3 things. With music, it's bass and treble. You know, middle C is 265 hertz is in the middle. But with hi-fi stuff, it's 3 instead of just bass and treble. It's 3-band graphic instead. So you get bass, mid-range and treble. Really simple, 3 things. And each one of these, start with the bass, is divided up into 3 as well. Lower bass, bass and upper bass. And those kilohertz and hertz there are also just only approximate, may not be completely accurate, but just a guess. You have on the bottom, you have thump, the kick drum, pump, bass, guitar, boom, floor tom, and then bonk, tom-toms and wood blocks and stuff like that. Lower mid and mid-range, the squawk, the male voice, Up mid range is squawk, it's female voice. And then we have chuff, which is your breath. And a snare drum, and normal middle treble. Chiff is a hi-hat. Talk about chiff in a minute. And up the top we have tizz. Now, full range speakers suffer bad in they have too much chiff and not enough tizz. And as chiffy as buggery, the reason they're so chiffy is because they do go up high and they've got a high frequency response, makes them chiffy because the cone is so big. It's such a big cone reproducing something over about say 7 kilohertz or something, you know. It's going to be a lot louder than on a tweeter that's only 1 inch round and the same frequency. So you have to do something with the crossover to stop that. What I've done is put a 1.5 microfarad capacitor on it, and then an inductor in parallel with that. And if you had the speaker right inside the box, yes, it's going to be a gap, yeah, but not now because it's outside the box. And there's chuffy as buggery, you know, because you're going to miss out on chuff, aren't you, really, in the next one down. You can miss out on that if you just put a 1.5 capacitor on a full range speaker and then put an inductor on it in parallel with it. No, it's going to have no chuff. It's going to the voice is going to sound really muffly and everything like that. So having it outside the box compensates, but that's not the reason to have the speaker half outside the box. We'll come to that later once on the list. Now, we've gone through that. This is going to be for another video. I'm going to do how to make your own speakers without math. Yeah, except for impedance. You need basic, simple maths for that, but impedance is pretty easy. Other than that, nothing, you know. Just by sound. And now here we go. Going through all the theory. Now, have to go to the list again because that's one thing that's very important, otherwise I miss out on something. My breakthrough went through that, the simple. That's okay, it's always good to have it covered. Bass. Now, these woofers are 10-inch woofers, and they're called J-car woofers. I've got a video about these woofers called what best woofers in the world or something, in inverted commas. Anyway, the J-car one, I got them here somewhere. Where are they? There's some there. It's J-car, yeah, J-car, J-car, and there's Australian thing. They're $65 each, and actually a subwoofer woofer, but they're just a woofer. They go to 1 kilohertz. So if they go to 1 kilohertz, you can use them as a normal woofer, not a wooler. But they're really good, really deep, and they're $65 each, and they're best woofers I ever heard. They're just gorgeous, and the kick drum's so beautiful, and just hear that slap on the kick drum skin sort of thing. So what, you know? Just amazing. And the bass guitar's just perfect, and you hear every note's all even and everything, because it's in a sealed box. Maybe it's the box that's making them sound good, but the one you're going to change the box a little bit, aren't I? But not that much. Now that's the bass covered by these woofers. Now I've got a 5.6 inductor on the woofer, and about a 2.2 ohm resistor on it. By resisting the woofer, it gives the treble a little bit more get up and go for the full range speaker. Because originally when you get it, they're muffly. There it is. The original one's a bit the same as that. I think it's the same one, that one. No, it's not. It's a 4-inch one though. I haven't got those. There's one here, but it's already mucked around. It's not original. Anyway, they're $20 each. The reason I love really cheap, shitty full range speakers, look how cheap and shitty that is, you know. Look how thin that cone. Really pathetic, thin cone. Oh no, never would use that. But the thin cone is why I buy these sort of drivers. It's because a thin cone, especially when it's a bit smaller, like a 4-inch, is just so much better for transit response. The thinner the cone, the better. That's why I do it, and they're great as long as they, when you first try them out and see if they've got any treble. Sometimes they haven't. Even one exactly like this, exactly the same as this, was really muffly once. It's just a driver. I can't see what would make it muffly. How could it make it that muffly? It's completely muffly, you know. But I don't know, just one out of the whole lot of them. And plus another thing about buying these speakers on eBay, if you buy them on eBay, 90% of them are all fucked up. They're all damaged. They come damaged because they put them in a bag and they get onto each other like this, and they just push each other and squash each other, and they come squashed every time nearly. So the only way you can buy them now, I don't know what to do, but you buy the more expensive ones, I suppose, but then the expensive ones are plastic. Plastic cones don't sound any good. The reason why paper cones sound so good is because if you rub this, it sounds like white noise. But this one's plastic, rub it and it doesn't sound like white noise. And so if it sounds like white noise, it's obviously a lot better, I reckon. And also I got more evidence to back this up. The Freestrex make full range speakers, and they're 8-inch ones, and they're the most expensive ones I've ever heard of, and they are $70,000 a pair for the 2 drivers, just the drivers, and the cones are made of paper. And so that's the only reason they don't make them out of paper is because it doesn't last so long, and it could you know, deteriorate, I suppose. But I'd much rather just buy another driver for 20 bucks. Now go back to our little list here. Bass, mid-range, and now we get into this mid-range, mid-range. The reason for the passive radiator is to make the mid-range a lot warmer, so to speak, not so squawky, more squawk and more bonk, you know, because this, when it's like this, a little driver like that, if you didn't have a crossover on it, I don't think it would be very good. It'd be pretty squawky, wouldn't it? But the crossover takes care of that. And the odd shaped box makes a lot better, a lot less resonance, a lot clearer sound, and way better mid-range because of that box. And the bottom, it's a 1/4 inch gap, and the top's a 1/2 inch gap, and I've drilled holes in the driver to get the sound coming from the back of the cone to come out and spread out all around the room to make it sound dipole. And you can change the frequency response by just changing the position of this. For instance, on the bottom here, if you move it in by 1 millimetre, it's too squawky. You move it out by 1 millimetre, it's too squawky or too bonky, you know. It's the opposite, you know. And so it's a real knife edge thing. And you don't have to touch the crossover to make a real lot of difference. And so if it gets a really annoying and really squawky voice, you know, and it does it all the time, more than just one album, all I do, oh, that's pretty loud. No, maybe I could pull them out. All I have to do is put the screwdriver on there and move it like a 1/4 of a turn or something, and it take the squawk down a lot lower level, sort of thing. But then it depends on the albums too. Then some albums sound muffly. That's the trouble. See, you know, a real bonky voice sort of thing. So you go, it's a real nightmare, I tell you. Now, next one, that's the mid-range. Now with the treble, we've covered the treble, haven't we? We covered that, so that's good. Now, dipole, we've covered that, and we've done the walk around experiment, done to the back of the speakers. I am making a set to sell too, so next time when where's that picture? There's the flying bike. The flying bike. idea. It's just a flying bike, not original, except mine's going to work by the handlebars instead of by a hand controller, like instead of one of those model aeroplane hand controllers. And anyway, what the speakers will look like, and they've got the wood. The next time it's just make the speaker boxes, and the speaker boxes have to be really, really good ones, you know. So they're just worth $2 just by themselves. It's the only way you can sell them, because speakers that look like this, somebody's drilling at the back. So speakers that look like this, and maybe even if they are the best speakers in the world, nobody'd pay any money for them because the boxes don't look good, you know. You've got to have the boxes looking really good. You make some speakers, and the only reason I'm doing it is because I reckon the sound's good enough, you know, to be worth $2 as well. So I'm going to do it and put them on Gumtree, pick up only. Okay, thanks YouTube. Okay, anyway, enough of that.